Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a una nueva edición o un nuevo capítulo de nuestra sección Capital Humano, el espacio que tenemos en nuestro medio de comunicación Capital Digital para mostrarles los rostros, las caras de las personas que están relacionadas con los ecosistemas de innovación, emprendimiento, tecnología, transformación digital, como ustedes bien saben que son las temáticas que nosotros abordamos en nuestro medio de comunicación. Hoy nos encontramos en un lugar especial. Estamos en la 14ª versión de Prodem Seminario Taller. Es una actividad que dura 4 días en donde distintos académicos, expertos, comparten información con los emprendedores y con los referentes y los actores relevantes de nuestro ecosistema. Y hoy les tengo una sorpresa. Hoy tenemos uno de los más importantes académicos y investigadores de la Universidad de Utrecht en Netherlands, es decir, Países Bajos, y también de la Universidad de Stellenbosch en Southafrica. Queremos dar la cordial bienvenida a Erik Stam. Erik, how are you?
Buenos días, todo bien.
That's great. You speak Spanish?
A little.
A little? That's
Poco.
great. Un poco? It's okay. But we're going to, what do you prefer? We made the interview in English or in Spanish?
We do English and a bit of slang in Spanish.
Okay, we can do it in Spanglish. Can we?
Spanglish, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, is your first time in Chile, Erik?
Yeah, it's my first time in Chile.
Yeah?
I met a lot of people from Chile, but never been in Chile.
What do you think about the country? Did you recently arrive or you had the chance to take a look around?
No, I arrived a few days ago, and the snow-white Andes mountains are really marvelous. Really beautiful. And the country, yeah, it seems to be very well organized, smooth. It reminds me a bit of being between, let's say, Spain and Japan, if I may say so.
Back your home in Netherlands, do you have some mountains with snow?
No mountains at all.
No mountains at all?
No, it's Países Bajos, so it's flat.
Flat. Okay, that's
It's
great.
a flat country.
Okay. Well, Erik, in the first place, we want to know you better. So, can you tell us where you're from? What is your profession? What do you study? And if you can share some information with us.
Yeah. So even though I'm an academic, I'm from a family of entrepreneurs, which tells you a bit about my history. So I was raised in a family of entrepreneurs. I was the first to go to university, and then I liked it so much that I wanted to continue. And then I became a professor. I studied economics and geography, but I also did a lot of other disciplines like philosophy, French, sociology. And I was always interested in entrepreneurship and also understanding how entrepreneurship evolves in different places. Because if you look around the world, there's places with a lot of entrepreneurship, with very little entrepreneurship. So I have always been interested in what are the conditions for entrepreneurship and how does that lead to economic development, prosperity, some industries emerging more quickly, for example, in the Cambridgeshire area in the UK than in Spain, or in the US than in Japan. So understanding how the conditions for entrepreneurship evolve, how this affects industrial transformation, economic development, prosperity, that has always been high on my agenda.
Oh, that's great. So the interest for you for the entrepreneurship and innovation, ecosystems and studies start since you was younger.
Yeah. So I had these family members, entrepreneurs, telling about their business, and I was always interested in why they made things happen that didn't exist before.
So you have the practice and at the same time the academic information. That's a good mix, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've always been interested in practice, but also especially from an academic point of view.
Well, in the same way, we know that you have a lot of academic experience in the entrepreneurship ecosystem and science as well, more than 200 books and articles at the same time. But can you tell us in general what about the main subjects or matters that you cover in these books? I know it's very hard, like make a summary for all that books in general, but maybe the main one of that us, like I don't know, entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Yeah, so my work in the last 10 years has been mainly on entrepreneurial ecosystems. So the set of conditions that explain why some places, regions, countries have more entrepreneurship than other places. And I've put a lot of effort in measuring this better in Europe, in Africa, but also other parts of the world. So, for example, also in Chile. And also bringing together insights from multiple disciplines, so from economics, from business administration, from sociology, from psychology, from computer science, from political science, and also always, as you just said, engaging with practitioners, so entrepreneurs associations, policymakers, investors, to get to understand where are the bottlenecks for entrepreneurship and how to improve them and how to get better insight into that. So that has been most of my work in the last decade.
That's great. And all these very interesting topics, what do you think about the practices or the experience in the real world? We can say that, and about how the people that it is involved in the ecosystems, about the entrepreneurs and the innovation ecosystem, how they can use this information and these studies in the practice.
Yeah, I have to say that's always a bit of a struggle, because entrepreneurs want to do things today and get things done tomorrow, the latest, while entrepreneurial ecosystem development is about the long term. So sometimes about changing processes over 20 years.
Of course.
But you can't wait for 20 years, so you have to start tomorrow.
Okay.
So it's a combination of these fast acting entrepreneurs and these slow moving structural conditions, and how to bring that together and how to inform each other, so how to learn from entrepreneurs where they are facing bottlenecks, but also learn from policymakers, investors, universities, mayors, on how they can improve these conditions for productive entrepreneurship. So that is really the challenge for people like me.
That's great. Do you have some experience, some example that you can share with us? Maybe back in Netherlands or in some country in Europe, like they are using all these academic and this information, this experience.
Yeah, I think one important lesson is that we should not all become like Silicon Valley. So each and every region and place should look at its own history, and then based on its own history and relevant benchmarks, which Silicon Valley unlikely is going to be a relevant benchmark, going to learn how to improve this region. And I've been doing work with a lot of regions in Europe, but also in Africa, and to have conversations with people on the ground, listen to them, do analysis based on data, show these results to them, have a discussion with them about that, and then try to prioritize what is important, what can be improved. Then starting to improve those things, that takes years, and stay in conversation with them. So it's really a long-term exercise.
It's great. And how the people, the community, the academic community, or the ecosystems in those places, how they take it?
Yeah, so I think the nicest compliment I got is that ecosystem developers sometimes say to me, well, you explain to my mother-in-law what kind of work I do. So that ecosystem development is a profession and not a fashionable thing to do.
Yeah, of course.
So that is really also one of the missions. I have to build up a framework, a body of knowledge that is both academically credible, but also useful for practitioners, and also to have mutual engagement, that we learn from each other to improve these conditions for better entrepreneurship and ultimately more prosperity and sustainable development.
That's great, Erik. All these themes, subject or academic areas and experience areas as well, maybe this information was that you shared with the people yesterday?
Yeah. So I was invited here at the Prodem conference, especially also to talk about GAIAL, which is the network of regions and cities in Latin America that are improving their ecosystems. And we had a conversation on heterogeneity in entrepreneurial ecosystems, so how much diverse they are and how to measure this and how to appreciate that. And I also talked about what we call a data and dialogue-driven ecosystem approach, so that we try to get as much data on the table to learn how ecosystems are doing and how they compare to other ecosystems. But data in itself is not going to be useful if there's no dialogues with the stakeholders that enrich the data with their own local knowledge, and that also have conversations on what matters most, what should we improve, and how can we improve that, and then take action and learn about what has been done in other parts of the world that can inspire your improvements in the ecosystem. For example, if finance is the weakest link, how to improve access to finance with crowdfunding or with particular credits or venture capital. If talent is the most important problem, how to tackle that with either attracting people or improving the education. And then implementing this, you also need to have data to show that your implementation works or doesn't work and why it doesn't work. So here again, data and dialogues are also important after you start improving the ecosystem. And that's what we discussed based on my own work, but also work being done in LATAM.
That's great. Is your first time, your first approach with a Prodem event, or you participated before?
I have participated before, but always online. So this feels like the real thing.
Oh, that's great. Even it's because in Concepción, isn't it?
Yeah. That's even more special. Yeah.
That's great. Well, talking about that, you are saying is very important. The experience that the people can have in this kind of event, isn't it? So that's why I want to ask you, what do you think about the bio ecosystem and about the Latin American ecosystem? Can you maybe make some comparate in some point what's going on here in Latin America, in Chile, in Concepción, like the biggest to the smallest ecosystems, and maybe you can say some comparate both ecosystem, what's going on here in America, Latin America, and what is going on in back in Europe maybe, or in Africa. And can you tell us what do you think about our ecosystem?
Yeah. Of course. First, a big disclaimer: I'm not an expert on Concepción, bio, or Chile or Latin America. So you know much more about that than I do. So I need to be a bit humble here.
Of course.
But there's a lot of variation within Latin America. So Mexico is completely different from Chile. Chile is completely different from Suriname. Venezuela is completely different from Ecuador. So there's a lot of variety. What was also a bit surprising to me when I looked carefully is that there are quite some countries that have an aging population here as well. So that are facing less inflow of youngsters and more older people, which in general for entrepreneurship is not a very good thing, because let's say more risk-taking and more high-impact entrepreneurship is mainly found in the age of 30, 40 years, when people have some experience, can still do a bit of crazy things, but not when they are 50 or 60, so to say. So it's, for me, it's a bit in between parts of Europe, parts of Africa. So I would say Chile is somewhat comparable to Spain or Italy, perhaps even better on some aspects. But if you look at Venezuela, that's probably not better than Egypt, for example. So there's an interesting comparison to be made with Latin America, Europe and Africa. And also the variety within this continent is of course huge. That makes it somewhat comparable to some parts of Europe, somewhat comparable to some parts of Africa. And also, of course, urban-rural differences. Santiago is, of course, very dominant in Chile, but the same is for Sao Paulo and Mexico City in Brazil and Mexico. So it's an interesting mix of different types of cities, regions, countries, and I'm very happy to be in the company of Prodem, and especially Hugo Kentis, the founder of Prodem, who's done a lot of research here in Latin America as well. And I've been collaborating with him for a long time, so it's also good to see that we can co-produce this event here together.
That's great. That's great, Erik. I think you said a lot of very important things. One I want to maybe get a little bit deep is about the age. You have reason when you said that the age is very important, because the entrepreneurs and the innovation are at the same line with the age, with the people, isn't it? So we are getting older. We have an ancient population, so I think that is important. So and this I think is going to be an trend from here to
demography is
many
something that is
years. So
yeah.
I think it's not going to change. So for the people that is doing something now in innovation and entrepreneur, what advice can you tell us about? Because I know you drive a lot of measures and KPA, so maybe you can tell us some advice about it.
Yeah. So the good thing about entrepreneurship is that entrepreneurs see opportunities everywhere. So I learned that they call it the silver economy here. So there's probably all kind of opportunities in services and health for the silver economy as well. So it's not terrible in itself, but there's also opportunities in that. So you also like to have perhaps these older people be self-employed after they retire, because they are still full of energy and experience. So it's also another way to look at retiring, I would say.
Yeah, that's
different stages of life, and if you live longer, then you also have multiple careers, and an entrepreneurial career may be part of that. But on the other hand, if you want to build new businesses that change the world, you're not going to do that when you're 60 or 70. It's more likely when you're 30 or 40. So that's going to be a bit problematic, I think. And there's also all kind of questions about migration. How is migration going to compensate for that? What kind of migration? These things are high on the political agenda as well, but there's also a study, an object of interest to me for studying and understanding how migration can either contribute or is harmful for particular societal developments. So yeah, I think these are interesting times, not to talk about geopolitical dynamics as well. But overall, I think the most important message, and that's also why we are here, is that we need to be aware what is happening, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each and every place. We need to have data about that to make a good judgment on where we stand, diagnostics, and we need to take action and learn from that to improve each and every region and country in its own way. And I think that's what the entrepreneurial ecosystem approach promises to enable.
Perfect, I get it. So, do you leave a recommendation like have some more babies? Maybe.
Well, at least you don't want to be a shrinking population. I guess if you want to continue to increase the knowledge base of society and to push the technological frontier. But well, who am I to tell individuals what to do?
No. Just a joke. Yeah, thank you. Well, Erik, in favor of your time, do you want to reinforce or say some idea or maybe some advice about the different challenge that we are having now in the different areas like economic, political, and social? Do you have some advice about the challenge that we have in the innovation and entrepreneur ecosystems?
So I think your question is a bit orthogonal to the entrepreneurial ecosystem approach, because the entrepreneurial ecosystem approach is really to do justice to the very local specific conditions and to deal with that. So giving you a general advice on how to improve entrepreneurial ecosystems, I would say my approach would be to act more intelligently, to bring together public and private sectors to have an agenda on where the regions and our country stays and how to improve it. So it's more a process recommendation that I can make than a sort of a general content recommendation. On the other hand, I think there are some no regret policies or directions. So investing in human capital, investing in digitalization, these are things that you need to do to stay ahead of the crowd. And I think your program is also about the digitalization. So investing in digital skills of people, investing in a digital infrastructure, having regulation that enables the use of digital infrastructure. It's very important for the connectivity and for staying ahead of the technology, using the technology properly.
That's great. Erik, the people have to know that you have, like we said before, you have a lot of books and articles where they can find all this information.
Well, most of my work is academic, so I won't recommend it for the general audience. But you can, for example, Google Scholar, which is sort of the main platform for academics. If you Google my name, Erik Stam at Google Scholar, you find all these publications, and most of them are open access, so you can download them and read them. But what's perhaps nicer if you have less time to look at YouTube. and look at entrepreneurial ecosystem course Erik Stam. I have a set of very short movies on understanding entrepreneurial ecosystems. These are only a few minutes long and you can just watch the lectures online. I think that might be nicer for the audience than to read all the articles.
Yeah, of course they do. Well, we are getting in the end of this interview, Erik. I don't know if you want to refer some main idea or you want to say something to the ecosystems. Well, this media, we are trying to get into all Latin America.
Yeah.
So if you want to share some last idea.
Yeah, I think we're living in the age of big data, but we're not really using it. So please try to make better use of all the data that is available. On the other hand, developing entrepreneurial ecosystems is very much a people business. So it's not rocket science, because rocket science you can, with one millimeter, can decide where the rocket will end. But this is not rocket science, so you also have to have dialogues, you have to have interpretation of what people say, you need to build up social capital. So it's both data improvements, but also having dialogues with all the people that are relevant for improving the entrepreneurial ecosystem. That is very important. And I think with Gayal, with Prodem here, these are very good platforms and associations to improve the data and the dialogues about entrepreneurial ecosystem development. And this is hard work, but I think it's worthwhile doing it because entrepreneurship can really be a force for good to tackle a lot of societal challenges for which we don't know the answer yet, but for which people need to experiment. And once we found a good solution to scale this over a country or Latin America or even beyond Latin America.
Yeah, that's right. Well, like I said, thank you very much, Erik, for this opportunity to talk to you, to learn more about you, about your work. For us, it's very important to have you here in this set. So thank you very much for this opportunity, Erik.
Muchas gracias. We're all learning.
Of course. So, thank you very much, Erik. So, bueno, ahí estaba la entrevista.
¿Todo bien?
Todo bien, sí, todo bien. Sí, bueno, ahí estaba la entrevista con Erik Stam, quien quiso conversar con nosotros en nuestra sección de Capital Digital. Muy simpático, con mucha información que también quiso compartir amablemente con nosotros. Así que quedamos con una sensación de mucha gratitud hacia Erik. Así que bueno, chicos, ustedes saben, pueden encontrar esta entrevista en todas nuestras redes sociales. Nos pueden buscar en Instagram, en YouTube. También pueden seguir la cuenta de Erik. Él ya les dio la recomendación donde pueden encontrar sus libros, sus estudios académicos también. Así que bueno, la entrevista la dejamos hasta acá. Muchas gracias por su audiencia, chicos, y nos vemos en una próxima entrevista de Capital Humano en su medio de comunicación Capital Digital. Hasta la próxima. Chao, chao.